Today's one of those videos, 10 brands that are killing it right now. Those brands are going to be happy. There are a few brands that I'm going to mention in this video that aren't. And there's a number of brands that I mentioned, about 7. Let's first get into the brands that I think are killing it, and then we'll talk about the brands that I think are losing right now. So the first brands I'm going to mention here, and I'm going to be mentioning them pretty quickly, are Rolex and Tudor. And the reason why I'm mentioning them is because most channels right now, they put up a picture of a Rolex and they say that the brand is declining, they're not doing well, or whatever they want to say because they want to get clicks. They want to get views on their videos. But the fact is that Rolex has never been more popular. Tudor, by way of Rolex, have never been more popular. It doesn't matter what they release during Watches and Wonders. Those watches are on fire no matter what. They can come out with a really ugly watch, that celebration watch that they just recently came out with. I think it's ugly. The new Daytona, I don't really like it at all, but it doesn't really matter what I say. I'm not the person buying these watches. There are plenty of people out there who are buying them. In fact, way more people than the number of watches than they produce, and that's why there is so much demand for their watches. They are killing it. They have been killing it. They weren't always killing it, but over the past 10 years, they have been really, really on fire, and they continue to be on fire. From Rolex, I go to Timex. I think Timex is absolutely on fire. Every watch that they've come out with recently, maybe not every single watch, but most of the watches that they've come out with recently have been amazing. They've been listening to the public. They've been making updates to current models, but they've been coming out with all new models, dive watches, field watches in titanium with sapphire crystals, automatic movements, and they are really listening and coming out with enthusiast watches. Watches that are competing with micro brands. Although it's Timex, Timex has a really good name in my opinion. Not everybody agrees with that. However, they do have a history, and that's what sets them apart from micro brands in my opinion. I buy a lot of Timex watches, and I know one thing is for sure, I'm always excited for a new Timex release. Moving slightly up market, Christopher Ward have been killing it lately. I know there are a lot of Christopher Ward haters out there. For whatever reason, I don't really understand that phenomenon, but I really like what Christopher Ward have been doing. They come out with their higher end models, which are more expensive with in-house movements, but they're also focusing in on their more affordable watches like the Sealander, which they just recently updated and made some pretty significant improvements to. These watches cost $1,000 and go up to around $5,000. I'm sure that they're going to come out with more in-house movements. Their new in-house GMT is awesome. The Belcanto has been a real game changer for them, and it's given them exposure to higher end collectors. And I think that's kind of where some of that hate comes from. A lot of higher end collectors love watches like the Belcanto, affordable, interesting complication, and it's a really good looking watch in titanium. There's a lot of reasons to love these watches, and I love what Christopher Ward are doing. And again, another brand that I'm always excited about to see what they are releasing next. And it's not only me, there are plenty of people out there who love Christopher Ward because they're selling like hotcakes. And there's a reason for that. They're making amazing watches and they are on fire right now. If you love the watches that I talk about here on my channel, you're really going to love the website that I'm about to tell you about. It's called Wristrebels. Wristrebels is a website that has all of those small micro brands and independent brands that are really hard to find all in one place. Brands like Sika Design, Mon, Formex, Awake, and Beau Blue, and many other brands you won't find anywhere else. Definitely check out Wristrebels at wristrebels.com. Also check out their Instagram at Wristrebels, and if you end up buying something, tell them that WatchChris sent you. The next brand is another brand in that mid-range tier, which is a really, really tough tier of watches. It's Longines. But in my opinion, everything that Longines have done over the past 6 to 7 years has been really, really good. It's one of those brands, another one of those brands that have been really listening to enthusiasts. They've made changes to some of their very popular watches like the Hydro Conquest and the Hydro Conquest GMT to make them more enthusiast focused. They've come down in size. They have true GMT complications. All of the Hydro Conquests come in under $3,000, and that is a really good price for a watch that gets an in-house, technically in-house or proprietary to Longines. It's a 300-meter dive watch with a ceramic bezel. It's from a heritage brand. And in my opinion, I love the design. Yes, they're moving closer and closer and closer to making it look like a Submariner. It's a popular watch, but in general, I love what Longines are doing. And it's not only with the Hydro Conquest line. I love the Spirit. I love all of their classic dress watches, the big eye chronographs, all of the watches that they come out with, really well made and well finished, especially for the price. The next brand I want to talk about is almost achieving Rolex level hype status. It is Cartier. However, Cartier, even though they're getting to be somewhat of a hyped brand, I still like what they're doing. I like that they've come out with a titanium version of the Santos. I like the Santos Dumonts that they've come out with. I really love their jump hours. I like pretty much everything that they are doing over the past few years, and I'm not the only one. It's evident because there are a lot of people talking about them and people are buying their watches and they are selling pretty well. Are they selling for over list price right now? No, but that doesn't mean that they aren't killing it, because they are. Everything that they are doing is getting a lot of positive response from the enthusiast market. If they keep on doing what they're doing, I'm going to be there for the ride. Another brand that I think has been on fire recently is Venezianico. This is a micro brand, and their watches span between $500,000 and $5,000. They came out with their own in-house movement with a hand guilloche dial. It's an Italian watch that I think is really cool, and they've also come out with new versions of their affordable watches as well. Their dive watches and their integrated bracelet watches, the Arsenals. They've come out with smaller versions. They've come out with platinum dials, mother of pearl dials. They keep on thinking about their watches, making little changes, coming out with special dials. Overall, I feel a buzz from the enthusiast community. Originally, when they started making these new watches, they weren't as popular. There were people calling back to their history where they had some problems with quality control. But they've really straightened out all of those issues. They are making high quality watches for very good prices. I love what Venezianico are doing, and I know there are higher end collectors now looking at their watches and seeing the value in them. And I really do think Venezianico are on fire. The next brand that I want to talk about is Parmigiani. Now, Parmigiani have been around for a while. They've been making very, very expensive watches, but recently they've refocused their brand into quiet luxury, which is a term that I know a lot of people don't really like. But what they've done is taken all of their designs and cleaned them up. And they've made complications that are sort of hidden on these very complicated watches. But at the same time, if you were wearing it in a room filled with Rolexes, no one would know what you had on your wrist and how special it is. And I think that's really cool that they've decided to go that route. All of their watches have somewhat of a hidden complication, like their minute rattrapant, their hour rattrapant. They just recently came out with a chronograph that is completely hidden on the dial. You wouldn't even know it's a chronograph. Their perpetual calendars are really clean. It doesn't look like a perpetual calendar. It looks way neater than your typical complicated looking perpetual calendar. This is their MO. Their watches are extremely expensive, but in my opinion, their design is top notch, and I love everything, every single watch that they currently make in their collection. The last affordable brand that I will mention here, and they're on the borderline of being affordable because they're around $2,000, is Awake. The dials from Awake are amazing. Everything that they do, they put a lot of effort into. And the overall design of their cases and their movements, it's nothing too groundbreaking. They have a very standard case, which is very nicely finished and it looks really nice. It's a very nice size, and they're using a Girard-Perregaux movement. So it's somewhat of a standard movement. It's on the slightly higher end when compared to all the other standard movements that you could buy. So it is somewhat special, but it's not the movement. It's not the case that makes these watches special. It's the dials. The dials are handmade. They're usually featuring some sort of gold or silver leaf. They're hand painted, hand enameled, and also hand fired. These are special dials that are usually a lot more expensive on any other watch that you would find out there, except they are made by a micro brand and they are done in Vietnam, so they are less expensive than you would expect. And the fact is that the secret is out on these watches. Majority of what you're looking at on a watch is the dial. So if the dial is exquisite, you're going to really like the watch. And that's the reason why these are so popular with enthusiasts right now. Lots of people are buying these watches. Definitely check them out. I think they are amazing. The last brand I want to mention is a brand that is loved by the enthusiast market. It is Moser. Moser is loved by people who collect high-end watches and people who collect more affordable watches as well. They're an aspiring brand. People who aspire to own a luxury watch want to own a Moser. They are the cool kid on the block currently in the independent space. All of their watches are just interesting. Some of their watches are, maybe a miss, but most of their watches are interesting, and their dials and everything that they're doing just seems cool right now. They take chances, they do silly things like the pump that just recently came out. They're only making 500 of those watches, and I'm sure they're already sold out. I've been a fan of Moser for a very long time. I've always aspired to owning one of their watches, and eventually one day I will. I really love what they're doing, and I know a lot of other people do as well. Moser have been on fire for a while, and I think they'll continue to be on fire in the near future. Okay, enough with all the positivity in this video. Let's get to some of the brands that I think are not doing so well. I'm going to start with a brand that I have said many times here on my channel I just don't see the appeal of. It's Breitling. I cannot look at the Breitling website and find a watch that I think is good. I know that they are selling watches. I don't know who they're selling them to. People I don't know, because almost every single person that I know, and I run a club with about 1,000 members in the club, I don't know many people in the club who own a Breitling. And that is not a good sign. Breitling have come out with new watches, and every single time I see them, I'm not really that enthusiastic about what they're doing. I hope that turns around for them, because I really did like them in the past. I loved the Emergency. I loved the Super Ocean. There were a lot of watches that I thought were really cool from the brand, and recently, nothing that they have made has sparked my interest. It could be just me, but like I said, I have a pretty strong pulse of the watch community in general, and from what I can see, no one is talking about Breitling. Next is a brand that I like, but I don't love, and there's a lot of reasons for it, but I think in general, if you look at the secondary market on these watches, they have been continuing to fall over time, and at one point they were way overhyped. And this is a problem for a lot of brands. When they originally come out, they get overhyped, and then the prices come down sharply, and the prices have come down sharply on Ming over time. And they keep on releasing watches, and that is a big problem for Ming, and the general secondary market has come down significantly. Now you can buy these watches at a significant discount. I think the original appeal for Ming was that they were exclusive, that there weren't a lot of them out there. They were kind of rare. You didn't see them on people's wrists when you went out. And now they are way more common. They have released so many more watches. They don't seem as exclusive as they did in the past, especially on the secondary market. The next brand hurts me to say it, but Girard-Perregaux. They've come out with a number of watches over the past few years, and really there hasn't been a lot of fanfare, a lot of attention that they are getting, because I think some of their designs they need to revamp. I like what they're doing. I like the casquette. I like some of their Neo bridges. I like the Laureato, but I don't think they're telling the stories properly for these watches. For some reason, here in the United States, they just aren't popular. In general, Girard-Perregaux needs to tell their story better. They need to get their watches on collectors' wrists, and they need to get into the community. And that's something that they haven't done here in the United States. If they did, I think people would take notice of their watches more. And right now they are not on fire, unfortunately, and they definitely deserve to be. But like I said, because of the lack of storytelling here in the United States, I don't think that's the case. Another brand that it pains me to say isn't on fire right now is Zenith. Zenith have come out with a lot of watches over the past few years, and again, they're sort of missing the mark with a lot of collectors. Either they're not telling the story correctly, or their designs aren't really resonating with collectors. The El Primero has a great story. Does everybody know that story? Does everybody really understand why the El Primero is important? I think these are things that they need to get across a little bit better to not only the people like me and you, but the average collector as well, because they are making a lot of watches, and a lot of times the releases aren't really getting all the attention that they should be. I love Roger Dubuis, but I just don't understand what the hell they are doing. They recently came out with their perpetual calendar that they reissued, and they charged $80,000 for it. I know there are some people who are going to be buying it. I think it's a beautiful watch. I love it. But every other watch that they make is not great. They came up with another perpetual calendar and they put it in the Excalibur case. Roger Dubuis is another brand that is not telling their story. I think there is a lot to be said about Roger Dubuis and the origins of Roger Dubuis and his watches and what he did in the past. I don't think they are telling these stories, and that is a big problem for the brand. I think that they are trying to be a Richard Mille-esque watch, and that is not their identity. I think they should definitely focus in on what they did well in the 2000s, the early 2000s, because those watches were amazing. And it's the reason why back then they were somewhat of a hype brand. Today, they are relatively unknown. No one talks about Roger Dubuis at all. Speaking about not being in the conversation, Panerai. Panerai were on fire for a very long time. Lots of their watches selling for over list price. I was a Paneristi. I loved Panerai. I owned a number of Panerai. Today, I own one Panerai. And I would sell that watch, although I would never sell that watch because my wife bought it for me. Other than that, I don't see myself ever buying another Panerai. I really liked Panerai for a very long time, but something about the unlimited, limited editions that they've come out with over the years, not being able to tell the difference between each limited edition that has just a nuance of color, or a change that is just a slight change from the previous version, and this one's a limited edition of 500, this one's a limited edition of 200, and the prices are all crazy. It just all becomes confusing, and I think that they have confused even the most die-hard collectors like myself. I stopped paying attention to Panerai releases because I just feel like they don't make sense. Every time they release something, it just looks like something they released in the past, and I have no idea what has actually changed. I see the picture and I move on. Last but not least, and probably the brand that hurts me the most, is Omega. Omega has a very similar problem to Panerai. They keep on coming out with new watches, and a lot of the time I look at them and I say to myself, is this a new watch or have they come out with this in the past? I just don't know. And their prices have been ridiculous for a lot of their new releases. They just came out with new constellations. I think they're just okay, but for the price, I don't think they're great at all. Omega has a great history. I really love Omega. I just don't feel like any of their recent releases have connected with the public. I might be wrong about that. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think the watch brands that I have mentioned, most of the watch brands that I mentioned that I thought were on fire, I genuinely think those are on fire. I can tell that from not only from my watch chats, but also my videos that I make where I mention these watches. A lot of people are excited about what they are doing. And then the other brands that I've talked about, definitely some of the watches in those brands there is some excitement about, but most of the watches that they are making currently, there isn't a huge number of people excited about what they're coming out with. If you disagree with me, please tell me down in the comments below. If you agree with me, tell me down in the comments below. If there are brands that you would include on the on fire list versus the not so on fire list, tell me down in the comment section below. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for joining me today. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel and I very much appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.